So some working relationships don't work out because the onboarding process was not facilitated properly. And I know this because I also didn't onboard the previous nannies we had, and the fallout we had was because of miscommunication. And had the onboarding process was done efficiently, some of the issues we had would have been avoided. Hello and welcome to the Nanny Employer Wellness Diary podcast. My name is Relebogile and I am your host. So I mentioned in the previous installment that in 2019 I employed 3 nannies and had fallouts with all of them in 9 months. It was a movie. So the third nanny that we hired her in just about June, July, and we had our fallout in December. So I mentioned that we never interviewed the nannies we hired. We also got them through recommendations. So how we got this one, I was staying in a complex at the time and there were other nannies who were employed by other residents in the complex. So I went to them and asked, do you know anyone that needs a job? And the one nanny gave me the nanny that we hired contact details. I called her and I did a very brief interview and she came through the next day. Now you need to understand that we were very, very, very desperate, right? So now when we were fetching her, my ex-husband looks at her profile picture on WhatsApp and he's like, oh, she looks so serious. And then he says to me, I'm not comfortable with her. And then I was like, yo, relax, it's just a picture, right? So when we got home on the first day, my gut feeling was like, nah, she's not the one. This is not going to work. So my mom came through to help us for a few days while we were looking, but she had to leave. And so I'm telling her that, I'm not sure, hey? And she says to me, this is the third person that you are hiring this year. So this has to work where it has to work. You can't judge a person when they just got here. As long as when you come back from work, the child is fine, then forget about other things. Other things you will just have to do them yourself. Right? So she had a point, and I also value stability. So I decided to basically settle. And here's another reason why I decided to settle, right? Me and my ex-husband were already separated at the time, and my daughter was about 3 years, and I felt like I was putting her through a lot by changing so many nannies, and she was not taking the separation well, you know. She was a daddy's girl, and like I said, I value stability, and the constant changes was just too much. So, okay, we continue working with her and she's an amazing person. She was doing what needed to be done, but I was still feeling uneasy. We were not the right fit for each other, you know. Our character and personalities were not aligned, but we made it work, right? So we had our fallout in December. How? It's December, right? She has to go on leave. She left on the first week of December. It was on a Friday. So she assumed that when she leaves, I'm going to give her her December salary. So in the past months, we were paying her on the last day of the month, right? So she got paid on the 30th of November and she is leaving the first week of December and she was expecting me to pay her for December. So she asked me, where's my money? I'm puzzled. I'm like, huh? She's like, I'm leaving. I want my money now. And so I'm confused because I'm just like, but I just paid you last week. And she's like, yeah, but now it's December. And how do I know that you're going to send my money? I want my money right now. You know, you know, which basically mean like, Yango, you better give me my money right now. So now I'm even more confused because we never paid her late or short paid her, you know. So I'm like, but I've never not paid you. So I'm going to pay you on the 20th. She's angry and she's like, hey, I want my money. You are disrespecting me. So when she packed her things initially, right, she didn't pack everything. So now she's starting to pack all her clothes, everything. She's like, you are disrespecting me. I'm not even coming back here. And then I'm like, oh, okay, ma'am. All right. Okay. So I made a plan to get her her money so that I can pay her, and it was a mess. It was a mess, right? I showed a brave face, but inside I was so scared. So this is a classic example of the implications of not onboarding your nanny effectively and not communicating. So January 2020, I was fasting and the Holy Spirit was like, you need to apologize. I mean, I'm just like, apologize for what? I'm not wrong. I mean, she couldn't have expected me to have funds a week after I paid her. It just doesn't make sense. Why must I apologize? How? And the Holy Spirit is just like, you need to apologize. And then I called her and I apologized. She did accept my apology and we still contact each other now and again, So when I apologized, I still strongly felt that I was right? But now I fully understand that I was so wrong, because it is your duty as an employer to lead and set the tone. And I simply just didn't do that, right? Part of onboarding your nanny is to go through the contract and discuss these things concerning her salary. So here's what's interesting, right? She told me that the previous families that she worked for, they used to give her December salary when she goes on leave, irrespective of when she goes on leave, right? And how I used to work with our previous nanny, I paid her December salary on the 20th, irrespective of when she goes on leave in December. So we both assumed that we were going to work how we used to work with other people. And so it is very important to personalize your needs, your expectations, your situation to your nanny during this onboarding process. Don't assume that because you have always done things this way or this is the norm, so then it's obvious. Nothing is obvious here. So here's the thing, right? On the first day when the nanny started, I did show her around the house. We talked about my kids' routine and what she is expected to do. We talked about her salary, when she's going to get paid, and also she also expressed her needs, and that was it. That was my onboarding process then, of which that is just not sufficient, right? So I would highly recommend that you onboard your nanny the whole week and break down the conversations and activities each day, right? In that way, whatever topic or activity that needs to be discussed will be done in detail. So I would say that on the first day, they are going to settle in and you will show them around and you will go through the duties, explain the baby routine. They're also going to do housekeeping work. You should show them how your appliances work. And so if you are a person who likes things to be done in a certain way, like you have a set schedule that they need to follow, then you give them the schedule and make them aware that you prefer things being done in that way. And if you're a flexible person, you let them know that as long as this and that is done at certain times and other things you don't mind them using their own discretion, then that's what you communicate. If you are a person who would like to have a shift report, then you give them the report card that they need to fill and you explain exactly what needs to be in the report card, right? You also show them what they need to do in case of emergencies. And then on the second day, you can talk about compliance. This is where you're going to go through the work agreement. You discuss disciplinary issues, how you're going to evaluate their performance, after how long you are going to increase their salaries, when are you going to review the work agreement. It is very important that you get clued up on how the law works, and there are companies that specializes in HR for home service that you can consult with so that this information can be broken down to you in a way that is going to make sense so that you are able to explain the legal requirements to your nanny. And I highly recommend that you equip yourself with this knowledge before you hire the nanny. I mentioned in the previous installment that you should have a copy of your nanny's ID or passport and work permit, and also their proof of address, and you should make soft copies of these. You can also start with the process of registering them for UIF and compensation fund. And then on the third day, you can talk about your family dynamics, right? Who will your nanny report to, your family values, your deal breakers, and your expectations from a family standpoint. And when you are having these discussions, your nanny should also talk about her needs and her expectations. Personalizing your need is one of the most underrated activities, and yet most working relationships end up not working out because of assumptions, right? Just like the story that I just told you about our previous nanny, if I communicated our family dynamics clearly, then that incident wouldn't have happened. You should also be fair and live up to your words. If you don't expect your nanny to spank your kids, then you should also not spank them. If you are conscious parenting, you should explain to your nanny what that entails and what does it look like to conscious parent, right? And if you're still figuring certain things out, you make them aware that this is what I'm still figuring out, you know? And then on the fourth day, you can introduce your nanny to your acquaintances and friends that are close by in your neighborhood, right? If you're staying in a complex or an estate, people that you are acquainted to should be aware of your nanny. This is important in case of emergencies and you are not reachable, or if you work outside of town. If your child gets sick during the night, your nanny should not struggle who she needs to reach out to. Right? You should also show your nanny your neighborhood if they are not familiar with the area you are staying in. They need to be aware of their surroundings. So after you're done with the onboarding process, I recommend that you have a family manual. So basically, a family manual is you documenting everything that you would have discussed during the onboarding process. You can create a file and have all these documents and give your nanny to keep. You should also include all the compliance documents. I have a template of a family manual that you can download. The link is in the description below. So once you have handed the family manual to your nanny, you should also have a checklist where your nanny should also sign that you onboarded her, and also document her needs and expectations, right? And also sign that you are aware of what she needs and what she's expecting from you. Things are always better when they are also written down. It is one thing to talk about what your child and family needs and for the nanny to voice out their needs, but when it's written down, it's almost as if they can't make an excuse that they forgot, or they say they don't remember you saying that, right? So now life does happen and things do change, and whenever change happens, it is very important you address things in real time as they are happening. I think it's impossible to cover every single detail in the first week, especially if it's the first time you are hiring a nanny. And so this is why contract reviews are very important, and also scheduling check-ins. And for the first year, I highly recommend you review things every trimester so that everyone can be on the same page. So here's the thing about my story with this particular nanny, right? You need to realize that the day we had our fallout, she didn't wake up knowing that at the end of today, I'm going to be without an income. And I mean, in that moment, I wasn't thinking about the consequences. And because she was not the right fit in terms of her personality and character, I won't lie, part of me was relieved, right? However, I'm relieved at the expense of someone's income. In Jan, I replaced her with another nanny. So now I'm fine. I'm sorted, and she's not sorted because she doesn't have an income. And you know how the job market is in our country, all because of a petty misunderstanding that I could have handled better. And if I did what I was supposed to do in the beginning as an employer, none of this would have happened. And even though she was not the right fit, we made it work, right? It was not that bad. Like, honestly, you know, my kids were fine under her care. So you must understand that in that week, there was no tension or anything that indicated that she will resign. No, we were fine. So you must understand that her resigning out of anger took a financial toll on her. Luckily, she got a job just before the hardcore lockdown, and imagine that a lot of people lost their jobs at the time. And I'm not blaming myself or condemning myself. There is a difference between blaming myself and holding myself accountable. And I'm holding myself accountable because I want you to understand that you should not let your nanny go without a job because of you failing to do what you're supposed to do as an employer. Right? If you part ways with your nanny, let it be because of circumstances beyond your control, like you relocating or you having to adjust your finances and you have to let them go, and you follow the right procedure at that, right? Or let it be on them through misconduct or them not performing, even if after you have given them enough support and resources so that they can thrive in their jobs, but they're still not coming through. Let it be because of those reasons and not you not doing your part, because you are responsible for people's livelihoods. This is a very serious role that you're responsible for, right? I think I need to repeat it again so that it can sink in. You are responsible for people's livelihoods, right? If you are listening to this and you know you were in the wrong or you could have handled things better, then it's not too late to phone the nanny and apologize, right? If I did not reach out and apologize, then if she went for interviews and they needed a reference letter, then I bet she was not going to call, and maybe she was not going to get opportunities because of non-traceable references, right? And so if the nanny you had a fallout with was efficient and you can vouch for them, then reach out and give them a reference letter, because they're probably missing out on opportunities, right? You reaching out can be a step into them getting work, you know. So that is it for today's episode. If you found value, please do share it with someone who is currently looking for a nanny. And if you know that your friend was the one who was wrong, if they had a fallout with their nanny recently, send them this podcast so that they can see another perspective. Maybe they will also reach out and apologize to their previous nannies. And if there is one thing that you would like to add on in this onboarding process, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you're listening on Spotify, then leave a review, and I will see you in the next upload. Take care.